It's 9 a.m., the 19th of November, 2021. I'm Anthony Davis. It's The Anthony Davis Show. And this is what we do each morning. And if you get the chance to spend your morning with me, then, well, you're in a good place, both spiritually, emotionally, and physically. So thanks for hanging out, and I'll be here till 11, and hopefully you will too. If you're on the East Coast, then I'm here till 2 p.m. So you enjoy yourself as much as you can in the company of Backchannel, which is an interactive, brand new kind of interactive forum for talking to the hosts without typing or texting. If you're watching this on an Echo Show device, then you just have a little chat. Jazz joined us already this morning. Thank you, Jazz. Nice to know you're checking out Backchannel this morning. So you just say your wake-up word, the activation word with your device, then the word say, and then your message. And then it goes straight through to me here, and you can be part of the show. You can also watch on our YouTube stream, and you can chat on our web chat facility, which is backchannel.tv. Let's get straight into the morning newspapers. I'm very keen to kind of, whiz around the US and check out some of the big stories making the morning papers. Just a little tease of what might be coming up a little bit later. We're going to talk about gentrification. The problem with the neighborhood gentrification, if it's a positive thing. So we'll be discussing that in more detail a little bit later. The debate on capital punishment is, of course, an endless debate. And so we're going to talk about this is after the Oklahoma governor has halted the execution of Julius Jones. We're going to look at the divisive issue of capital punishment here in the USA. Also, Biden's Saudi arms deal and teachers who are now scared to teach race relations in the classroom in case they get penalized. Not critical race theory, because that doesn't exist in the US school curriculum. Doesn't exist. So we're going to do those conversations in just a little while. Okay, let's go straight to the Los Angeles Times. I'm in LA, by the way, so, it's always good to start here in your hometown. The headline on the front of the paper is Art Gallery Backlash. A black man opened Band of Vices in West Adams to support visual artists. Vandals branded him as a gentrifier. Yes. It says Terrell Tilford likes strolling the streets around his art gallery, Band of Vices. As West Adams rapidly changes, walking lets him check on his neighbors. He'll exchange waves with the guys at Tack Collision, the auto body shop across the street, or rap for a while with the staff at Delicious Pizza, 1 block over. It's very cute, isn't it? This is kind of downtown LA living. Well, he said he hits up Vice Cafe for its breakfast burritos and browses the selection at Adams Wine Shop. Last month, he was headed back from a quick stroll for milk when he stopped dead in his tracks. On one side of Band of Vice's bright pink building, someone had spray painted the letters in big black letters, "What's all this white people's shit?" And the paint hadn't even dried. And he's a black man. So, it's almost as if there is this kind of preconception that anything that might be seen as gentrification must be connected to the white man. So we're going to look at this in a little bit more detail later on. It's a very interesting subject. Hi, Boney. Thank you for joining us. Nice to know you're back with us here on Backchannel. Anytime you want to hang out with us, you know where we are, 9 till 11 Pacific, and Monday through Friday. Last one of the week today. Last one of the week. That means that today would be our 10th show, Carla. Carla's producing the show in London, and she's right here. She kind of is the puppet master to this sad, limp marionette puppet that is only capable of communicating with direction. House poised to pass Biden package. Yes, House Democrats plan to approve their sweeping measure on Friday to strengthen the nation's social safety net programs and begin to respond to the climate crisis. A sorely needed show of progress for President Biden's legislative agenda, even as it faces more hurdles. Well, they've done that now. I think that's now done. Unfortunately, it now has to go to the Senate, and it's probably going to come unstuck there. So, the politics in this country. Hi, Stacey. She says, are you ready to spend another lunch hour with me? Yes, I am. Stacey's in Texas, so she's on the, Eastern time zone, so therefore she's having lunch. I just had my breakfast, a little oatmeal and a cup of tea, and then I come and join you for a couple of hours, and this is my morning, and that's your morning. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who held control of the House floor for more than 3 hours last night before Democratic leaders rescheduled voting for this morning. Democrats appeared to have enough support to pass the package once the House is able to vote, leaving little suspense to the outcome. Yeah, Kevin McCarthy last night. Adam Schiff did a tweet last night, which was one of the best. I'm going to try and find it for you. Adam Schiff is the senator from here in California. Let me just read you the here we go. This is the tweet that he posted last night, halfway through Kevin McCarthy's 3-hour speech that he just did last night. I mean, why he did that. So this is what Adam Schiff posted 13 hours ago. It's very funny. He said, if you took the worst orator in the world, gave him the worst speech in the world, and made him read it for the longest time in the world, that would be a lot like listening to Kevin McCarthy tonight, except probably better. It was the worst speech. And the reason that he was doing it was because he was delaying. He was just purposely trying to delay the vote, and that's how it works here. It's called they get the floor for a minute. It's called a minute. But it's not a minute. It can be as long as they want. And so Kevin McCarthy did 3 hours criticizing everything that Biden's trying to do and trying to manipulate with propaganda his side of it. And it was just like beggars belief. Like, do you want anything to be done here? I feel sorry for his constituents, the people that voted for him. It just seems to me like they just want to own the libs. They don't care about the people. They don't care about getting anything done. They just want to own the libs at whatever cost, even a 3-hour speech that delays the vote till this morning. Unbelievable. Hi, Sanjay. Thank you for joining us. Sanjay's also in Texas. Have you met Stacey? You might have bumped into each other in Arby's. I don't know. So front of the LA Times is where we're at on this Friday morning. Also, UC ends its use of exams for entry. This is the University of California. It slammed the door on using any standardized test for admissions decisions, announcing on Thursday that the faculty could find no alternative exam that would avoid the biased results that led leaders to scrap the SATs list last year. The SAT last year. So there it is. Carla, can we have the music up a little louder? Because I'm not hearing it. It'd be nice to kind of really pump it on this Friday morning. Turn this into a club. Look at me doing a dad dance. I'm a dad. So that's an interesting story. As thanks, there it is. Listen to it. I feel like I'm back in Santa's grotto. Come in, little boy, and sit on my lap. The sea of Thanksgiving travelers was already beginning to swell at Los Angeles International Airport on Thursday as crowds of people snaked through check-in lines, waited for bags, and piled along the curb. Airport staff made periodic announcements about COVID-19 guidelines, at times calling out travelers who weren't wearing masks. You're almost there, all the way up, nose, mouth, and chin, one said over the loudspeaker. Thanksgiving is shaping up to be the busiest travel moment since the beginning of the pandemic, as people try to reconnect with friends and family and loved ones. And this holiday, an estimated 2 million people are expected to travel through LAX, double the number from last year, but still 1 million fewer than in 2019, according to Heath Montgomery, spokesman for LAX. But the growing crowds also bring new coronavirus dangers. Although cases in California are trending down, officials remain worried about a potential winter surge as cold weather sends more people indoors and holiday travel rebounds. I mean, it is a concern. That was part of the reason why I decided to get my booster so early, because I'm going to be traveling to Cleveland on 2 aeroplanes. Not that it matters, but one is a 757 and the other is an Embraer E175. And on the way back, I'm on an A321 and an E175. Very important to me. You've got to be on the right plane. And so I'm sitting in seat 13B. No, that's too much information. And I didn't want to be on an aeroplane without a booster. So I got the booster, and I'm going to be double masked. I put the surgical mask underneath, the disposable one, and then I put the cloth mask on top. Both 3 layers. So I have 6 layers of protection. And then I get packing tape, and I put it around the outside of the mask so nothing comes in. Block up my ears as well. No, I'm kidding. It would be a little much, but I will be carrying a little bottle of hand sanitizer with me and, doing a cleaning, from the inside. Maybe that'll work. Maybe with a light, and put a light in and get some of the, maybe kill the virus that way. Chinese #MeToo moment deepens into a mystery. Also on the front of the LA Times this morning, it says what began as a confrontation between feminism and authoritarianism within China has evolved into a wider sports and human rights show. Down as the tennis world takes a stand for Peng Shuai, a Chinese player who accused a Communist Party leader of sexual abuse and has since vanished from public view. It's a case that touches on the most sensitive topic in China, abuse of power by Communist Party leaders. It also comes as Beijing prepares to host the Winter Olympics in February amid international calls for a boycott over China's human rights violations. So yes, there it is, the questions growing about state power and human rights after a tennis star accuses official of a sex assault. So that's really how the LA Times looks this morning. Stacey says, today I'm having burritos with chips, Star Crunch, and cookies for lunch. That sounds very healthy. What a very... Which bit of that has got the nutrition in it? That's what I want to know. Maybe Chip Star Crunch does. What is Chip Star Crunch? Is that a type of potato chip? Star Crunch that I haven't heard of? I try not to eat potato chips because if I do, I'll just do the entire bag. I can't just have 1 or 2. I have this overeating illness. Every parlor that has a nutrition is a plus. You might have to resend that one, but thank you. Okay, so that's the LA Times. Let's move on here with our newspaper review. By the way, if there's a newspaper that you would like me to cover, and I haven't, then you're very welcome just to send me a message. You can talk to your device in the usual way. Just say whatever it is, the wake-up word, and then say, and then your message, or you can type it at backchannel.tv. So that's the LA Times, and we're going to talk a little bit about gentrification later on in the show. Okay, let's jump to the Wall Street Journal now. Some big stories on the front there. Migrants lured by Belarus face efforts to turn them back. And it's a photograph of the Sendi family now living in a room in a hostel. They came to Minsk from Iraq's Kurdistan region, lured by stories of migrants entering Europe through Belarus. The family tried to cross the border into Poland, but was turned away. And a very tragic photograph of them. The whole family, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. Mother with her head in her hands, just lying in this tiny hostel. It's like a tiny bed. It's a very, very sad image on the front of the Wall Street Journal this morning. And yet I heard Kevin McCarthy making this emblazoned anti-immigration speech last night. Throughout his 3 hours, just kept coming back to it, build a wall, keep them out. It's like, how do people become so angry and so unhappy and so distasteful of people of their own race? I can understand it, like if you don't like rats, vermin, we've got the exterminators. I can understand that. But to speak of the other fellow humans, to speak negatively and talk about them like they're vermin, other humans, people of, same race. I mean, that rhetoric of extermination of people of your own race, that's fascism. And, in the last few days, we've seen several examples of fascism in the United States. We saw Paul Gosar tweeting a video of him executing with a sword Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And so the fascists aren't even hiding anymore. They really are they don't care. They're just out in plain sight. I tweeted a very interesting article on my Twitter about this morning from a journalist called Umair Haque, who's one of my favorites. I think he might be based in Canada now. Maybe he's in the US. Anyway, he writes very deeply about this, loss of democracy and the rise of fascism in the West. And I might read you, not now, but a bit later in the show, I might read you a little excerpt from Umair Haque's article today about the fascists not hiding anymore in America. They're not even bothering to hide. Very interesting. So it's on my Twitter, @TheAnthonyDavis, if you want to see it. But I'll read a little bit later. States investigate Instagram over how it affects children. Yes, a bipartisan coalition of state attorneys general said it was investigating how Instagram attracts and affects young people, amping up the pressure on parent company Meta. I can't get used to Facebook rebranding as Meta. Can you? Every time I open Instagram, which is not very often, it comes up with this new Meta logo, and I'm like, ugh. Hi, Nathan. Great to see you. Nathan's in Texas. Stacey's in Texas. Sanjay's in Texas. You see? And who said Texas was a predominantly red state? Well, Texas did. Who's the former governor who's about to run in Texas against Greg Abbott? It's Beto O'Rourke. Beto O'Rourke is going to run in Texas to try and flip it blue. And Austin is a very progressive state town, Austin. And it's very interesting that I think Beto O'Rourke actually stands a really good chance of flipping Texas for the first time to become a red state. To become a blue state, I mean. Wouldn't that be interesting? I wonder if he can do it. Greg Abbott has, Oh, Austin is actually a city. Did I say it was a town? I apologize. It's a city. Austin is a city. And my brother's been there a few times. It's supposed to be great. I have never been, but I would very much like to go to Austin. Especially if you're young, if you're under the age of 30, you can really enjoy Austin. It has a lot to offer you. Some great bars. And if you like music, you can go to South by Southwest, all these amazing concerts that take place in Austin. My other brother actually headlined at South by Southwest 2 years ago, just before the lockdown. His band was the headline band at South by Southwest. A lovely little talented family I have. He's out headlining a concert, and here I am, sitting in a SpongeBob SquarePants box. We get everywhere. Also on the front of the Wall Street Journal, Turkish lira's fall threatens Erdogan. Yes, a currency crisis is shaking Turkey's economy, imperiling President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's nearly 2-decade-long grip on power and upending living standards in a country that has enjoyed years of growth. I've been to Turkey. Have you ever been to Turkey? I don't know that Americans would necessarily go to Turkey as a holiday destination. I think there's a lot of places before you get to Turkey that they might want to stop off at, But in Europe, Turkey is the place you go when you've been everywhere else. Once you've done Barcelona and once you've done Paris and Rome and all of these famous cities, you're then should we go to Turkey? I really struggle to eat well in Turkey. I don't do great with Middle Eastern cuisine. I mean, it's fine, but I I struggled to eat in where I don't think it was because of I think Turkish food is excellent, but it wasn't because of Turkish food. It was because where I was in Turkey. I was in a very... It's hard to say. It was like a little sleepy town. There was just nowhere to go, so I ended up just cooking at home. I rented an apartment from a friend. What she didn't tell me is that it was a 5-hour drive from the airport. She didn't tell me that. She said, "Oh, my friend will pick you up. It'll be fine." It was a 5-hour drive in his little minibus through the mountains and shanty towns and those little roads on the edge of a mountain where you're like, there's no barrier. I'm literally going to die. And when we got there to this it was a beautiful apartment that she had with a pool and a little, it was very secluded, but there was just nothing there. And I was like, this doesn't feel like Turkey. Like, I think if you're gonna travel to a culturally diverse place from where you're from, you really want to go like downtown. You really want to like go to the market. You want to be up early and like mingle. You don't want to go to because I literally could have gone anywhere. I could have booked like a really cheap package holiday and just sat by a pool and it would have been the same. I mean, it was beautiful, but it wasn't worth 5 hours. And also, when someone says, "Oh, just use my place if you're looking for somewhere to go, just use my place." And to me, that's someone saying you can stay at my place for free. Well, afterwards, she was like, "Well, how much are you going to give me?" It was a bit awkward. I mean, I did pay in the end, but, I paid almost the rack rate. So that's my experience of holidaying in Turkey. Eye surgery chain put profit over care, some doctors say. They tell of push for volume at LASIK Plus. Firm says care is paramount. Well, of course they would. I say plus because I was just talking about Paris, but of course it's plus. So European. Since the laser surgery that can fix nearsightedness was approved in the 1990s, one firm, LASIK Plus, has grown into the US industry's dominant force by using low prices as a draw and vacuuming up rival players. Along with its growth, LASIK Plus has accumulated critics, including some of its own doctors, current and former, who alleged in lawsuits and interviews that they were pressured by corporate management to follow practices that they felt put the company's profits over patient care. What, here? In America? Putting profit over patient care? No, I wouldn't hear of it. It's lucky there isn't a pandemic because, then we really would find out who's making the most money. Some said they were expected to perform so many procedures each day that they were worried they couldn't keep up. They say it felt like we were in a war zone all the time. Wow, that's quite something. There was an exodus of 20% of the chain's then 40 or so doctors to a rival firm or private practice. I have never considered laser surgery for the old eyes. I have a couple of friends who had. One of my best friends, she had her laser eye surgery and she failed to sit still. And it went wrong. Because you have to lie very, very still. And they hold your eyes open like this with little clamps. This is not the best look for me, is it? It's not the best look. I bet this is going to end up being the YouTube thumbnail, isn't it? Welcome to my world. It's going to be the YouTube thumbnail. I'm really not happy about the YouTube thumbnails. I like to protect the image. I would very much like them to be of me just being contemplative, but a lot of them are stuck with me in mid-conversation or halfway through a sneeze or something. I don't know how to fix that, but if I did, I would. Yesterday. So, my friend didn't sit still, and consequently, the laser screwed up the eye surgery. And that was a bit of a problem for her. And obviously she had to go back because she was nervous. And, they give you something to relax you. I think a gin and tonic. But, interesting. Stacey says, patient care is more important than profit. Yes, it is. She said, in my world, because I'm visually impaired too. There you are, you see. I'm getting blinder. Like, if I take these off, I can't see. I cannot see anything. I cannot see what I'm reading. I can't see the camera. I can't see color. Like, I am getting blinder. These are getting pretty thick, these things now. I just accidentally broke my other glasses, my clear ones. You might have known that I wore a clear glass, and I went to get them fixed, and they said, well, you did have a very cheap lens in there. You had a basic plastic lens. Do you want a polycarbonate lens, like a proper, more expensive lens? And the difference in price was about $100. And I was like, yeah, I guess so. Because the thing is, as you get blinder, your lens gets thicker. And so you really want to go for a lens that's not going to look gigantic. I love wearing glasses. I just definitely getting blinder, and also my close vision now. Like, I can't read. I have to lift my glasses up and hold stuff here. I'm only 37. I don't understand how my eyesight's got so bad so fast. I'm just going to turn on the... I have a big machine here, and it was out of battery. I charged it up, so I'm just going to turn it on. It's just the clock, so I can see what time it is. There we go. The time sponsored by Accurist is... It's just booting up. Oh, my goodness. I mean, talk about... Where's the spontaneity this morning? 9:26. It's 9:26 here on the West Coast, 12:26 on the East Coast. You're watching Backchannel. I'm Anthony Davis. This is the Anthony Davis Show. And if you would like to join in, of course, you're welcome to do that. You just talk to your device. You just say the wake-up word followed by say, and then your message. So you would say, echo, say, Anthony, those glasses have got to go, and then I'll get that. Hi, Bob. Thank you for joining us from California. It's 9:27, Bob. This is Backchannel. I'm Anthony. Very nice to meet you. We're looking through the Wall Street Journal this morning. We were looking at Instagram and how it affects children. We were also looking at the story about migrants lured by Belarus, facing efforts to turn them back. And also, finally, on the front of the Wall Street Journal is a story about Ford and General Motors, a move to expand into chip making. You see, this is all because of those supply chain problems, getting chips from China. And because, all modern cars have computer chips in them now. That's how they do all of their... So much of what you do with a car is done with a computer. So, look, my car does cruise control. I think it's called active cruise control. And you don't have to press the accelerator or the brake to speed up and slow down. Well, a computer must be doing that, right? And then, of course, the car has a diagnostic system, which is a computer connection to the engineer. The engineer plugs in and the car tells the engineer what is wrong with it. Very interesting. Detroit's two biggest automakers, Ford and General Motors, are looking to get into the semiconductor business after a year of computer chip shortages that snarled their global factory output. Ford outlined on Thursday a strategic agreement with US-based semiconductor manufacturers Global Foundries, Inc., to develop chips, a pact that could eventually lead to joint US production. GM later said it was forging ties with some of the biggest names in semiconductors, including Qualcomm and NXP Semiconductors, and it has agreements in place to co-develop and manufacture computer chips. The moves are the latest examples of how pandemic-related disruptions are prompting companies to exert greater control over their supply chains by moving production closer to home, or in some cases, in-house. So there we go. That's the Wall Street Journal this morning. Very interesting. If there's a newspaper that you would like me to review and I haven't done, maybe where you are, if you're in Texas, for example, then just let me know and I'll take a look. Okay, let's jump on to the Washington Post next. Do love a little bit of WAPO in the morning, don't you? They lead with votes nears on $2 trillion Biden spending plan. House Democrats late Thursday appeared on track to adopt a sprawling more than $2 trillion package to overhaul the country's healthcare, education, climate, immigration, and tax laws, even as Republicans sought to delay the vote on a central piece of President Biden's economic agenda. Yeah, Kevin McCarthy with a pointless 3-hour speech. Just delaying. Just like have to think about that guy for a minute, you know? And just think, what does he think people think of him doing that? Making up all this stuff. What does he think people... Maybe he just doesn't care. The push by Democrats marked a stark turn for their party after months of intense internal wrangling, reflecting the growing sense of accord among liberals and moderates over the once contentious spending bill. The bill's passage would notch another major milestone for Biden just days after he signed into law a separate effort to invest $1.2 trillion into the nation's infrastructure. Democrats initially hoped to adopt the measure swiftly, but House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who is actually the representative here in California, he took the floor in the evening to deliver a marathon speech that had the effect of delaying the vote. McCarthy used the address to attack Democrats over a broad range of issues, including border security and Afghanistan policy. Afghanistan policy? That was Trump's policy. Get out of Afghanistan. That was a Republican policy that Biden kept in. He just delayed the exit from May through to September. It was a Trump policy. I mean, and you know, the people that criticize the exit from Afghanistan, you know, that fateful day when that kind of airlift, you know, and there was that video of that C-17 going off with people running alongside it and attaching themselves to it, and then when it eventually took off, you saw a couple of people fall from the undercarriage, from the wheel bay. I mean, aside from that, which is of course completely tragic, but it was actually a very well executed, you know, removal of thousands of people and troops. The criticism is that they left the equipment. Well, if it's a choice between people and equipment, you know, what are you going to take? But, you know, nobody died in the process of the airlift. They got everybody out. It was very... It's not easy, you know. It's not like getting on a Spirit flight at Burbank. It's a war zone. They're in a war zone, like they're having to protect the airport. They did it. They completed their mission. It was considered successful. I mean, look at the time that the Obama managed to get Osama bin Laden, right? That was considered a success, wasn't it? Except the two of the Black Hawk helicopters that flew in, one of them crashed, and they had to leave it behind. In fact, they blew it up. So would you say that's a success or a failure? They got Osama bin Laden, took him back with them, buried him at sea, but in terms of the mission, was catastrophic. But they still managed to make it work, and that's how I see this removal of people, this exit from Afghanistan, this retreat as it was. I see it as a huge success, but because we have that image of all the Afghanis like trying to jump onto that C-17, it wasn't actually taking off when that happened. You know, it had just landed. People don't realize that C-17 Globemaster, you know, military carrier had just landed, and it was taxiing. They weren't like jumping on it because they wanted to go off. It was desperation. It was an expression of desperation. Interesting, isn't it? 9:34. Backchannel. I'm Anthony Davis. So yes, we're looking at this story on the front of the Washington Post this morning. Vote nears on $2 trillion Biden spending plan. They've now had that vote. They've now approved it. It now has to go to the Senate. And there's a very good chance people like Joe Manchin, Kirsten Sinema, and a few other conservative Democrats are probably not going to give it their support. With just hours left, a life spared. We're going to cover this story in more detail a little bit later. The Oklahoma governor, Kevin Stitt, stepped in on Thursday. He's a Republican, incidentally. Just hours before the scheduled execution of Julius Jones, a 41-year-old who had maintained his innocence for 2 decades in the murder of a suburban businessman. And, yeah, look, here it is. Right here. Here it, oh, there it goes. There goes the tweet. But well done, Carla. That was very impressive. And that was a still, was it? So you worked out how to do a still. Here it comes again. Oh, that's a bit big now. It's a bit big. No, there it is. I'm literally chasing it around the studio. This is Kevin Stitt, the Republican governor, who tweeted, after prayerful consideration and reviewing, what does it say? And reviewing material. Oh, now it's gone. I was reading it off the screen. Oh, there it comes back again. It says, I'm going to hold on to it now so it doesn't go. Look. After prayerful consideration and reviewing materials presented by all sides of this case, I have determined to commute Julius Jones's sentence to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. Well, that's nice of him. What a lovely guy. He's chosen not to execute him. Jones's supporters erupted in cheers inside the Oklahoma Capitol and outside the Oklahoma State Penitentiary in McAlester, where Stitt's clemency decision emerged just after midday. Jones's sister Antoinette was outside the prison, where she cried and exchanged hugs with people as they absorbed the news. Jones's parents remained at home, where they watched the news and waited for word. When they saw Jones's sentence had been commuted, his mother, Madeline, broke into a praise dance, according to Jimmy Lawson, Jones's best friend from childhood. It's quite something, isn't it? He claims that a former friend committed the murder and implicated him. Interesting. It was featured in a 2018 ABC documentary called The Last Defense. So, I mean, everybody has their views on death penalty. My view is, we shouldn't kill people. If people get killed by accident, that's different. You don't actively kill somebody as a punishment. Not anymore. You know? It's like a life in prison is no life. But it's almost a greater punishment than the death penalty. But they still do it. It's been banned in most places around the world now. You know, most civil societies have outlawed the death penalty, including England, where I'm from. They haven't done one for 20 years. And, you know, here now in the US, they basically, you know, they're not supposed to do them, but states have taken matters into their own hands. But the rhetoric of the federal government is that we don't execute people. But, you know, states get the final say on this thing. Very interesting, isn't it? Bob, welcome back. Nice to know you're with us. Nathan, welcome. Stacy, welcome. Thanks for joining Backchannel. It's 9:38. It's the 19th of November. It's nearly Thanksgiving. We're just, like 5-6 days away from Thanksgiving? I need to go and find an imitation turkey from somewhere. I think pavilions sell one. I need to go and get myself an imitation turkey. And when I say that, it's not like some mush that's doing an impersonation of a turkey. But it's like a roast, but it's plant-based. I will actually cook a turkey as well for the meat eaters that are coming to my Thanksgiving. But in the main, and also turkey doesn't really taste of anything, you know, it's more about texture. So if they can fake a turkey and you've got all the trimmings, a little gravy, some beans, you know, French beans, haricots verts, then mashed potatoes. See, I've learned now what the American Thanksgiving menu is. You know, when I first moved here, I didn't really know what to cook on Thanksgiving, and now I do. Beans, and what's the pie? Is it a pumpkin pie or a pecan pie? What's the well-known Thanksgiving pie? Pecan? Pumpkin? Can't remember. Maybe you can tell me. Just say your activation word, your wake-up word, followed by say, and then your message. Interesting. Yes, you can have pumpkin pie, chocolate pie, or any kind of pie, says Stacey. Thank you, Stacey. You're really helping me out this morning. With just hours... Oh, I read that story. Sorry. Hundreds of Iraqis are sent home from Belarus. This is a story out of Moscow this morning on the front of the Washington Post. More than 400 Iraqis were flown home on Thursday from Belarus after unsuccessful attempts to enter the European Union at the border with Poland, where thousands of migrants have been stranded in perilous conditions. I'm pleased that story's on the front of most of the newspapers. And what else? Article on virus origin boosts focus on market. Yes, I had an argument, with my racist landlord the other day about, he's convinced that the Chinese lab, as he calls it, and he talks about the China virus and the Kung flu and all of this stuff. And I'm like, really? Really? And you see, the problem is people can't really intellectualize a pandemic because it's not happened before, so they can't really get their heads around it. So the only way to explain it is to make stuff up. It's convenient. The location of early coronavirus infections in late 2019 in Wuhan, China, suggests the virus probably spread to humans from a market where wild and domestically farmed animals were sold and butchered, according to a peer-reviewed article published on Thursday in the journal Science that is the latest salvo in the debate over how the pandemic began. The article by the University of Arizona evolutionary virologist Michael Warraby, a specialist in the origins of viral epidemics, does not purport to answer all questions about the pandemic's origins, nor is it likely to quell speculation that the virus might have emerged somehow from a risky laboratory research. Warraby has been open to the theory of a lab leak. He was one of the 18 scientists who wrote a much-publicized letter to Science. See page 6. Not again. If you want to hear the rest of that story, the Washington Post, page 6. I only got the front page. But, the transmission of viruses from animals to humans has been known to happen in wet markets. It's not a new phenomenon. It's a thing. Viruses leaking out of laboratories is very rare. And I think that the convenient truth for a lot of people was that they'd never heard of Wuhan. Now, Wuhan is a massive place. It's not some tiny little village. Wuhan is massive. And so the fact that there is a laboratory there is not a coincidence. It's a huge place. But I think for some people who couldn't qualify that Wuhan was a big place, they just thought it was a little place in China, and they think that it's the only two things in Wuhan are a virology lab and a wet market. And they're like, well, it's got to be the lab, because they don't know anything about viruses and the transmission of viruses to humans through animals. They don't, it's not their speciality. So people just make stuff up. It's a little bit like my theory about the moon landing, which is a famous conspiracy theory. My theory is, I would like to think they went to the moon, but I don't really know enough about it. So in my head, there's a little bit of doubt, because I'm not a moonologist. I'm not a moonologist. I never worked for NASA. So I can read about it and I can study it and I can analyze it and I can, get my head around it. But if I just I'm left to my own devices and make stuff up, then of course I'm going to be nah, it's impossible. It couldn't have happened. Never happened. I actually enjoy not knowing. I enjoy having a little bit of doubt. And it's not because I'm a conspiracy theorist. It's because I enjoy having doubt. I enjoy the conversation about whether they went to the moon or not, because it's not going to affect anybody. It's apart from Buzz Lightyear and, Louis Armstrong. But I mean, other than those two people, who cares? It's a fun conversation to have, to sow a little bit of doubt. But when it comes to a worldwide pandemic that has killed, 5 million people, where do you draw the line on being actually, we really shouldn't have personal opinions about this, we should just trust the science? Because each of those 5 million people has family and people are grieving and people are dealing with the tragedy of their lives. And so a pandemic is a very serious subject. You can't joke about it and be it's It didn't come out of a lab. You have to, use the science. I'm being quite contemplative this morning. I'm a bit tired, so I'm a little bit contemplative. Stacey says everyone has their own personal opinion. Yeah, but you shouldn't be allowed to have an opinion. Do you see what I mean? When it comes to this type of thing. This is what I'm saying. It's like, there are some things that we don't need opinion in the mix. We just need facts in the mix. You can have your opinion at home, but the moment you spread it, and this is the problem with social media, all of the controversy and the questions about what the origins of the virus have been spread because of people's opinions. The facts have been there since the beginning. It's very interesting to me that how we've allowed opinion to kind of get in the way of science being shared and communicated properly. So yeah, have an opinion, but keep it at home. But this is, we have now social media, and so people push their opinion, then opinion snowballs, and then opinion starts to become part of the modern vernacular. And then when you have people like the former president taking on those opinions because he's desperate to be liked and loved and voted for, he then starts to communicate those same opinions and share those opinions. And then when you realize that the president is saying it, then you think, well, it must be true because he's saying it, and he only said it because he read it on the internet. It wasn't given to him in a briefing document, never read those either. So this is why opinion is really unhelpful in a scientific area. And a pandemic is a scientific thing. It's not, there's no room for opinion in a pandemic. You just can't have it. You shouldn't be allowed. Default to the doctors, default to the scientists, default to the people whose job it is to try and protect us. And that's why when I saw yesterday, and we covered this story in Backchannel, Ron DeSantis reversing this federal mandate for vaccinations, it's just your opinion. You are allowing your opinion to get in the way of what is factually accurate, which is that if everybody is vaccinated, then the pandemic will hopefully come to an end. What was the phrase he used? People's self-immunity. Didn't he say that? People's self-immunity is going to protect them. We don't have immunity to coronavirus, to COVID-19. There's no immunity. That there are some people that will get the virus and then they will have some antibodies for 6 to 9 months. But that's not immunity. So he made that up. He just put his personal opinion into it. And the problem is when leaders allow their opinion, because Trump was all opinion, because he doesn't read. So every policy was his opinion. And if you govern like that, then you end up with a kind of faux society where people are just hoping on a wing and a prayer that he made the right call. But there's nothing to back it up. Very interesting to me. Very interesting. 9:48, Backchannel. I'm Anthony Davis. At Unite the Right trial, jurors pass slang of hate. This is a story out of Charlottesville. It says the jury in a federal courtroom listened as longtime researcher of far-right movements passed the style guide of the infamous neo-Nazi website, The Daily Stormer. The tone of the site should be light. Most people are not comfortable with material that comes across as vitriolic, raging, non-ironic hatred. The unindoctrinated should not be able to tell if we are joking or not, according to a guide section titled Lulz, which stands for Laugh Out Loud. I mean, this is quite something, isn't it? Jokey insider rhetoric is designed to obfuscate darker intent, experts say. And this is what I was talking about with the kind of stealthy version of modern fascism, is that it's stealthy, isn't it, No one uses the F word in this country. Have you noticed that? In all the coverage of all of the stuff that's gone on, Even the insurrection on the 6th of January, where a mob stampeded and broke in and smashed up the Capitol building and went into the chamber and tried to, looked for Mike Pence to hang him and looked to kill Nancy Pelosi, all that stuff. Not a solitary journalist or commentator or anybody used the F word. Nobody. I use it all the time. Big fan of the word. Because I think, to understand what fascism is to recognize that it's only this far away from a modern democracy. And when democracy falls, then what are you left with? And what I find really interesting is, occasionally you actually hear Republicans use it to criticize Democrats as fascists. Or Antifa, which stands for anti-fascist. I am Antifa, incidentally. And I hope you are Antifa. I would like to think that we are both Antifa. Which is not a real organization. It doesn't exist. It's just a state of mind. To be anti-fascist is to hopefully be a really good person. To be a peaceful person, somebody who's non-violent and wants people of all races and religions to live together in harmony. And yet, the last administration designated Antifa a terrorist organization. Do you know what that is? That's the F word. There it is. A family torn apart by the vaccine divide faces a new crisis. This is an interesting story out of West Virginia. It says her text messages with links to medical research had gone unanswered. Her halting pleas at the kitchen table had failed. And by the time Laurel Hort pulled into her driveway to find her daughter, Sam's car, newly adorned with an InfoWars bumper sticker, she could only conclude that her campaign to persuade her child to get the coronavirus vaccine was going nowhere. Laurel's vaccinated, Sam was not. They lived together, along with Laurel's vaccinated husband and Sam's unvaccinated boyfriend. In a tumble-down chalet above an artificial lake outside Charleston, it was a home with creaking floorboards, bulging photo albums, and a fireplace that had burned through 3 decades of Thanksgiving nights and Christmas mornings. This is happening right across America. People who live with family members who have opposing views about politics. And it is splitting up families. And this is what I was saying earlier about opinion. You can have an opinion, but know that it is just your opinion and it's not the gospel. And always default to fact. You can still have an opinion, and yet the fact remains. And this is why Hi, James. Thanks for joining us. James is in the UK. And this is why I honestly believe that we have to temper our opinions. We can have them, and we can have them in a conversation. You and I can have a conversation where we share our opinions. But fact is still here all along. It's a constant. So you have to know that your view is your opinion. I know that my view is my opinion, but we know that fact is right here. And if fact favors my opinion over your opinion, that's just how it is. It's not a competition. I didn't win. Why is it so competitive here? I mean, this is why I worry about schools, and I have a daughter in school, and I worry about her doing anything competitive in school. I'm convinced that, even elementary school here is preparing children for a very segregated adult life. Pick a side. What team are you going to be on? The Blues or the Reds? This division is indoctrinated in elementary school, let alone high school. Because it's not like this where I'm from in England. You know, you never talk about what politics you have. You can talk about politics, but you never ask, are you a conservative and are you a liberal? You wouldn't never ask, because it's just like this in England. If you're on the right, you're over there, and if you left, you're over there. But over here, it's like this. Whoa! So you could have really good conversations with everybody, normally over about 7 pints of bitter, lager, Guinness. Carla, I bet you're a Guinness fan, aren't you? Do you have a Guinness? Yeah, I could tell. I knew you'd like a Guinness. With a big head on it. Do you prefer it from a pump or a can? Oh, it has to come straight from Ireland. Carla's Irish, and a Guinness needs to really be born in Ireland. So from a pump in Ireland, I presume, or a can in Ireland. Like, is there a difference? I don't drink either, so I don't really know the difference. But I understand that, I've poured one for somebody into a glass, and I've tried very hard to get a big head on it. But what's it like out of a barrel on a pump? I mean, what's the difference to that and the can? Like, is there a noticeable difference? Can you tell the difference? I mean, temperature, I guess. Oh, the widget! I forgot about the widget. The widget was like a little valve that sat in the bottom of the can, and what did it do to the alcohol? It kept it. It prevented it from going fizzy or something. I don't know. It had some positive effect. But I remember the advertising for Guinness. They would talk about the widget. Be like, what are they talking about? I don't drink, so I don't really know. I was like, what is that thing? It's very interesting. James, maybe you know, if you're listening to us on your Echo device. I don't think you have a screen, but it's very nice to know that you're part of the show this morning and joining us here on Backchannel. Oh, look, for some reason... Stacey doesn't drink alcohol either. You see, this is the future. Get the alcohol out of your system and just focus on, stop smoking, stop drinking, eat vegetables, breathe fresh air. I was reading about mortality rates in the United States, and I was reading about diabetes being right up there. I think it's the 7th most prominent cause of death. And I was thinking, what's so sad about this is that it's preventable. And I see people in line at fast food drive-thrus, and they don't look that healthy. They're already overweight, and they already probably have diabetes, early onset diabetes. And so thinking to myself, why are you in line for that? Because then you're just going to end up in hospital, and then you're going to end up being really ill, and then you get so fat you can never get slim again, and then you're just your knees will go because you're carrying too much weight, and your back will go because you're carrying too much weight, and before you know it, you're just you don't feel attractive, or you don't want to have romance, you don't want, all of these things start to fall. It's a very quick slope down to becoming unwell, and it's all linked to happiness, isn't it? And I know that feeling. If I've exercised, I don't exercise very often, mainly the jaw. But if I exercise, that euphoria you feel when you finish, the endorphins and the what's the other one? Serotonin. There you go. Serotonin. The endorphins and the serotonin. There's no feeling like it. And, after that, the last thing I want to do is, go to McDonald's. My body is, feeling so energized that's when I want the salad and the veg and water. I don't want to, eat cake and drink coffee. Maybe it's different for you. Carla, should we try the new US news update at 10 o'clock? I think it might be a good idea. We're going to take a break for just a couple of minutes, and we're going to play you US News Update. It's a podcast that I do once a day, 5 days a week. It's 2 minutes long. You can download it wherever you get your podcasts. It's called US News Update. And let's hear it here on Backchannel. It's Friday, November 19th. From the Volley Network, this is your daily US news update. I'm Anthony Davis. More than half a century after the assassination of Malcolm X, two of his convicted killers were exonerated on Thursday after decades of doubt about who was responsible for the civil rights icon's death. Manhattan Judge Ellen Beeben missed the convictions of Muhammad Aziz and the late Khalil Islam after prosecutors and the men's lawyer said a renewed investigation found new evidence that undermined the case against the men and determined that authorities withheld some of what they knew. It pained Islam's sons Amin Johnson and Shahid Johnson that their parents died before seeing the conviction reversed. Still, Amin Johnson said his father would have been ecstatic to clear his name. Aziz and Islam, who maintained their innocence from the start in the 1965 killing at Upper Manhattan's Audubon Ballroom, were paroled in the 1980s. Islam died in 2009. New measures that restrict how race is addressed in classrooms have spread confusion and anxiety among many educators, who in some cases have begun pulling books and cancelling lessons for fear of being penalized. Education officials have nixed a contemporary issues class in a Tennessee district, removed Frederick Douglass' autobiography from reading lists in an Oklahoma school system, and in one Texas case, advised teachers to present opposing views of the Holocaust. Your daily US news update. And I'm back. It kind of went quite well until the end. Carla, where am I? There I am. It's very hard to, make it all work seamlessly, but look, we're working on it. Maybe I should be doing like this when US News Update ends. Just return to the show. It's 2 minutes after 10. It's the 19th of November. This is Backchannel. And you're listening to The Anthony Davis Show. There it is. You have me till 11 Pacific, and then your pal Hal is here. And there's hosts throughout the day. We have a growing list of shows, including Haley and Allison Live. They wake you up in the morning with lots of laughs and their one-star cinema review. Or you can get inspired with Liv Harrison, who loves finding out the secret behind people's success. Or what about the charming and funny Hal Rudnick, whose program Your Pal Hal directly follows this show at 11. So that's how it's looking here on Backchannel. Back to now. We are going to jump to Oklahoma now and look at Tulsa World. This is the next newspaper in our little review. If you'd like to join in, you can message me via backchannel.tv or just talk to your Echo Show device. Say your wake-up word followed by say, and then your message. And if you're watching the stream on YouTube, good morning, welcome to you. There's a comments area there where you can chat to me, and that will appear here as well. Sit opts to commute Julius Jones's sentence is on the front of the Tulsa World this morning. Oklahoma City Governor Kevin Stitt spared the life of high-profile death row inmate Julius Jones just hours before his slip of the tongue. His execution was scheduled to take place. His death sentence was commuted to life without possibility of parole. So, and there's a whole bunch more executions that are scheduled, and clemency has been recommended for most of these. So this is a big movement right now to kind of, to reverse these death row decisions. Also, House moves toward okay of $1.85 trillion package. A divided House moved towards passage on Thursday of Democrats' expansive social and environment bill, as the cost of estimates from Congress's top fiscal analyst suggested that moderate lawmakers' spending and deficit worries would be calmed, moving President Joe Biden closer to a badly needed victory. It says, hi, Karen. Nice to see that you're part of the show. Thank you for joining us here on Backchannel. It says you're in America. Not sure where that is, but welcome nonetheless. Yes, the Congressional Budget Office said the bill would worsen federal deficits by $160 billion over the coming decade. It also recalculated the measure's 10-year price tag at $1.68 trillion, although that figure wasn't directly comparable to a $1.85 trillion figure that Democrats have been using. House approval would ship the legislation to the Senate and end, though just for now, months of battling between Democrats, progressives, and moderates over its costs and policies. You see, the thing is, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, like the two who've been holding this up, their arguments for holding up this bill, right? I might sneeze. Hang on. Ooh, ooh. Oh, there we go. Little floaties. The thing is, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, the two kind of conservative Democrats. I don't call them moderate Democrats because I don't really know what moderate means. To me, moderate means conservative. And they're conservative Democrats. I don't know why they call themselves Democrats. I don't know really quite. I mean, maybe that was the only way they were able to get elected. But I've listened to their arguments, as thin as they are, as to why they're holding up this bill, and it just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, the bill is costed. It's over 10 years. It's a fraction of what it used to be. You know, this was like a $6 trillion bill, and it got whittled down to $3.5 trillion, and now it's been whittled down to $1.75 trillion. And it's like, what more do you want? You know, they spend $6 trillion on the military. 2/3 of America's national budget goes on military, a socialist program. You know, where you food and clothe and house and employ people and give them a career and a life and look after them. It's a socialist program. It just happens to be called the military. Well, that's 2/3 of America's national budget. And yet this tiny fraction, $1.75 trillion, is nothing, and especially over 10 years, is nothing in the big scheme of America's gigantic economy. And yet you have two conservatives dressed up as Democrats, well, they're not even dressed as Democrats, just dressed up as they're like, what would you call them? Infidels. Because they're definitely working for Mitch McConnell. You know, absolutely, they're getting all of their direction from the right, from the leadership, from McCarthy and McConnell. It's like, this is where they're direct, say this, say that. Why don't you pretend that you're not happy with Medicare and you want to get that changed? And that will just delay it a little bit longer. No different to Kevin McCarthy's 3-hour speech last night in Congress. It's just delaying tactics, owning the libs. There's nothing progressive about Joe Manchin. I mean, the thing is, he's not even done anything for West Virginia. You know, West Virginia is the second poorest state in the country. Did you know that? West Virginia. So his state that he represents would benefit so much from this $1.75 trillion bill, social spending bill. It would benefit more than any other state, and yet he's like, no, we're not doing it. Because he has the conservatives whispering in his ear, and they just want to delay it so they can own the libs and just not get anything through. You see, the downside to having these views is that the people suffer. I mean, people are suffering already, but this is just very interesting to me. People are suffering already. As you know, poverty in the US is on the rise. I think it's around 30% of people are living in poverty. The roads are in a terrible condition. The rail network is struggling. Public transit is a disaster. Broadband doesn't go very far or very fast. So all of the things, and then of course climate change. So all of the things that are in this bill are going to benefit the people of West Virginia. No end. And yet, Manchin, who represents West Virginia, is the one delaying it. It's just beggars belief to me. But what do I know? What do I know? It's just my opinion. Just my opinion. A chance to have hope again. Oh, this is more coverage of Governor Stitt, so let's leave that story because I've already done that. So that's the Tulsa World newspaper. If you are living somewhere and you're listening to this and you would like us to cover a story, like a newspaper, you would like me to read from it, to review it, to talk about the subjects on the front, then, I will happily do that. Let's look at this interesting story that's come out of the Senate yesterday. Very interesting. You remember me talking about Saudi Arabia yesterday and about this deal, this huge arms deal that Trump negotiated and Biden was due to ratify. Well, a group of U.S. senators are opposing the Biden administration's first major arms sale to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia over Riyadh's involvement in the conflict in Yemen, 3 senators announced yesterday. It's a joint resolution of disapproval to block a proposed $650 million arms sale to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It was introduced by Republicans Rand Paul and Mike Lee, as well as Bernie Sanders, who caucuses with Democrats. Because, Bernie is an independent. You probably know that. And while many U.S. lawmakers are an important partner in the Middle East, they've criticized the country for its involvement in the war in Yemen, a conflict considered one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. Yeah, that's definitely the one. Carla, this thing is moving around like crazy. Let's pick one. I think the half and half one is nice, but it needs to be up there for like 2 minutes. It's not working. It's the software. It's the software. It's the software. Many U.S. lawmakers consider Saudi Arabia an important partner in the Middle East. They've criticized the country for its involvement in the war in Yemen, a conflict considered to be one of the world's worst humanitarian disasters. They've refused to approve any military sales for the kingdom without assurances that U.S. equipment would not be used to kill civilians. An activist had said Saudi Arabia has lobbied heavily against extending a mandate of United Nations investigators who've documented possible war crimes in Yemen by both Riyadh-led coalition and the Houthi movement. Did you see the shopping list of what it is that they're selling? 280 AIM-120C advanced medium-range air-to-air missiles, The oatmeal is repeating on me. 596 missile rail launchers, along with containers and support equipment, spare parts, U.S. government and contractor engineering and technical support. In a statement, Paul said this sale that could accelerate an arms race in the Middle East and jeopardize the security of our military technologies. I mean, it's only $650 million, right? In terms of the American economy, the big scheme of things, it's not a lot of money. But Saudi Arabia, who is a very interesting ally, right? It's a very interesting ally because there are many people who say that Saudi should be considered the enemy. I mean, 17 Saudi nationals were the bombers in 9/11. There was the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, the journalist in Turkey, by the Saudi, it's been pinpointed on the Saudi prince, hasn't it? So, and he was an American national, Jamal Khashoggi, an American passport. And he was executed by the Saudis in Turkey. And yet nothing was said about it. So, is Saudi Arabia a friend or a foe? Do you want to sell arms to them while they continue to bomb the hell out of Yemen and the Yemeni people who have been in this humanitarian crisis now for, over 5 years? It's 10:14. This is Backchannel. I'm Anthony Davis. Raytheon Technologies makes the missiles. Yeah. Look, it's the same in England where I'm from. We mentioned this on the show the other day. The biggest export, the thing that makes the most money is the sale of gas and oil. And the thing that makes the second most money for the UK is arms sales to the Middle East. A company called BAE Systems selling, and that's a kind of British aerospace engineering. It's a nice name for them making military equipment, missiles and tanks and planes. Anyway, it's a very, very interesting story, this. So I'm kind of asking you, do you feel that this type of relationship with a country like Saudi Arabia should be one where there are a kind of military, a military sales relationship, or should it all just be about diplomacy? Surely the relationship between America and Saudi should be one of diplomacy, encouraging Saudi to stop bombing Yemen. That should be the prerequisite. Like, if you want, and maybe use the weapons and the sale as bait. If you want to buy our kits, then you need to retreat. I would love for America just to be this kind of peacekeeping force that just used its skills of diplomacy, and it does have skills. There's some great diplomats in the US, or from the US, all around the world. But wouldn't it be amazing if America was just like this incredible peacekeeping force, never fired a single bullet, but it used the might of its military to be this incredible force for good? It'd be amazing. Hi, Dylan. Thank you for joining us. Nice to know you're back. Dylan was with us yesterday. Dylan's in Nairobi. Stacy says yes. She agrees. America just becomes a global peacekeeping force, a bit like the United Nations, an organization. I mean, Trump wanted to leave the UN. Do you remember? He wanted out. So I don't want to be part of that. It's like it's about doing good. Wanted to be like, and this is the other thing I don't understand, and maybe you can explain this, but like, America boasts of its vast military, huge military spending, incredible military, amazing servicemen and women, very skilled, arguably the greatest military in the world. And yet, it just wants to pull out of all of these wars. Just wants to no, we can't be in Afghanistan. Even as a peacekeeping force, no, we can't be in Afghanistan. But you have the greatest military in the world. Like, what? Your military should be everywhere, helping countries that are unstable find stability. No, retreat. Let's get out. I don't quite get it. To me, it's like a bit of a contradiction. As it happens, I think there's still around 3,000 US troops in Afghanistan, providing some kind of, support to the Afghani army. Many of whom have fled, after the Taliban takeover. Because when the Americans were training the Afghan army, it all went down to money, like the day rate. So they would pay Afghanis to join the army, whatever the daily rate was. The Taliban were offering them more money to be members of the Taliban. It was all down to day rate. And so the Taliban, many of them are just regular Afghanis, but they are paid more to be members of the Taliban. It's not, they're just armies. It's about your day rate. Like, got to get the day rate. Got a family to feed. Got to look after my own people. I mean, they're all Afghanis. The Taliban aren't there's not a country called Taliban. They're Afghans. And the other reason I believe that the West lost the war is because it's very hard to fight on somebody else's territory and win. Because if you're protecting your land, imagine if someone came to where you are, to Texas or wherever you might be, and tried to take your country or your city or your town or wherever. You would dig in. You were born there. You would dig in. You were like, they are not taking this is my home. You are not from here. And that's basically what's happened in Afghanistan, isn't it? The reason that the Taliban won is because that's their place. That's where they're from. That's their home. And to see kind of a foreign military occupation is infuriating. I don't support the Taliban, incidentally. Just so you know. I'm not a fan. But the reality is that, they won, we lost, and the Taliban day rate for members of their military is higher than the Afghani government were paying for Afghan soldiers to join the Afghan military. It was all down to the day rate. And it's no different to being a builder or a plumber or a dentist. What's the day rate? Whoever pays the most is the one to likely you to want to work for. Especially in a country whose economy has practically collapsed. So, the more money you can get, the further it's going to go. It's very interesting, isn't it? It's very interesting. So, we're looking at this story this morning about the senators blocking this Saudi arms deal and asking you whether or not you think it should go ahead. The administration's decision to end so-called offensive weapons to Saudi Arabia was one of Joe Biden's first foreign policy objectives and reflected what the US president called his commitment to ending all support for a war that had created a humanitarian and strategic catastrophe. And yet, the Biden administration's new $500 million military contract with Saudi Arabia contradicts the spirit of the White House public policy to bar all offensive weapons to the kingdom for use against the Houthis in Yemen. It's a bit like, capitalism getting in the way of peace. It's a bit like when I was arguing with my racist landlord and he was basically saying, we can't trust the big pharma who make the vaccines. They're only interested in money. And I said to him, yeah, because they're operating in a capitalist country. And they're allowed to make a profit. That's how it works here. So you can have both. You can have a pharmaceutical company that makes a vaccine that works, and they can make money out of it. They can make billions out of it. They're allowed to because this is America. If you go to England, where we have a national health service, it's not the same. The pharmaceutical companies will profit, but not at the level that they do here. And invariably, the profit will go back into research and development. So it's just different systems. But if you support capitalism, then you have to allow Moderna and Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson to make a fortune. They're creaming it right now. But they also are, at their core, scientists and doctors and researchers, and they want to, this is the thing you have to understand about these types of companies. They're in two departments, aren't they? They have the laboratory, where the science is going on, and then they have the executive floor, where the execs manage the science and manage the sales, and then they make the profit. So it's not like the scientists are in the lab and they're like, oh, we've developed a vaccine. We're going to make a fortune. Like, that's not how the scientists think. The scientists are just being paid to be scientists. They chose to work for a company in a capitalist system that is going to make a fortune. They know that. But in their minds, they are saving people from death. So their motivator is healthcare. But the motivator of people that work on the executive floor is healthcare and profit. It's nuanced. It's not one thing or the other. I don't have a problem with medical companies making money because I've chosen to live in a capitalist system. That's how it is here. But the conspiracy theorists see that and they're like, oh, big pharma can't be trusted, not going to take the vaccine. They're making a fortune. And it's like, they do both. They make vaccines, they make money. That's this country. That's America. It's all about the dollar. But you also have the best scientists, the best artists, the best poets, the best writers, the best movies, the best actors, the best singers, the best novelists. We've featured a few great artists in the last few days, and they all ended up in America. No matter where in the world they were born or came from, the Middle East or Africa, as we've been discussing, they all just chose to die in America. Because it's a fantastic place. So we really have to just accept that things are the way they are. The virus came out of a wet market in Wuhan. Wuhan is huge. There just happens to be a laboratory there because it's huge. Because there's laboratories everywhere. I mean, how often do you go into a town and be like, oh, look, there's the local virology laboratory? Wonder if it's had any leaks recently. Of course you don't. This is the first people heard of it. I mean, this is good material. This is very good material. I hope you appreciate the quality of the material today. It's 10:25. This is Backchannel. I'm Anthony Davis. This is the Anthony Davis Show. Thank you for joining me. I'm here between Monday and Friday, between 9 and 11. And there's a whole bunch of hosts on Backchannel. They will talk about different stuff, different things. We do the news because it's a morning show, so we look across the morning newspapers, see what's going on around the country, and then we focus on some of these stories specifically. And I want to look at these new laws that have been steering some teachers away from race-related topics. Very interesting to me. Big subject. We'll look at that in just a minute. We've been talking about the arms sale to Saudi Arabia, $650 million worth of missiles and stuff that Biden has agreed, despite saying that he wasn't going to encourage warfare. And so Rand Paul and Bernie Sanders have got together and they are trying to block this sale. And we're asking whether or not it's right that they do so. It's interesting, isn't it? So much to talk about. So if you want to join in on that, you're welcome to join in the usual way. You can text chat. Just go to backchannel.tv. It's a website. And you can, message that way. And the other way is you can talk to your Echo Show device. Just say the wake-up word, followed by say, and then your message. And if you're watching this on YouTube, we have a live stream on YouTube, then you can type in the comment section. That appears here as well. So many ways to be in touch. Great ways to chat with Backchannel. Very, very easy to do. You don't even have to touch anything. No typing. Just say the words. Echo, say, no, he shouldn't sell $650 million worth of arms to Saudi Arabia. That's a really bad idea. Or echo, say, yes, he should totally sell it. We need the money. You choose. Whatever you think is fine by me. New measures that restrict how race is addressed in classrooms has spread confusion and anxiety among many educators, who in some cases have begun pulling books and cancelling lessons for fear of being penalised. Carla, I think the music is stuck. It was like, I felt like the heavens were opening and angels were about to take me away. So good. 10:27, this is Backchannel. Carla, the Puppet Master, me, the Muppet, Anthony Davis, the Anthony Davis Show. Thank you for joining me. It's the 19th of November. Education officials have nixed a contemporary issue in class in a Tennessee district, removed Frederick Douglass's autobiography from reading lists in an Oklahoma school system, and in one Texas case, advised teachers to present opposing views to the Holocaust. What is the opposing view to the Holocaust? Let's think about that for a moment. What is the opposing view? Is it that it didn't happen? Is it that 6 million Jews did not die? Is it that it was kind of not a bad thing to have happened? I mean, what is the opposing view to the Holocaust? At least a dozen states have passed measures this year restricting how schools teach about racism, sexism, and other topics. While educators are still waiting to see how they will be enforced, the vagueness of some of the measures, coupled with stiff penalties, including potential loss of teaching licenses, already are chilling conversations on race in schools, and in some cases having consequences that likely go well beyond the intent of those approving measures. Matt Horn, who's a high school social studies teacher in Tennessee, he has said he heard from teachers concerned about how they will teach controversial topics since he was fired himself this spring as state lawmakers were finalizing new teaching restrictions. He said it's certainly giving them caution, like, what's going to happen if I teach this because the penalty is so steep. He was dismissed after school officials said he used materials with offensive language and failed to provide a conservative viewpoint during discussions of white privilege in his contemporary issues class, which has since been eliminated. Only in America. Teaching around race and diversity has been on the rise alongside a broader acknowledgement that racial injustice didn't end in America with the passage of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Those efforts have spurred a backlash, particularly among Republican voters. Now, I've heard this, just, like in conversation, that people say, oh yeah, well then, they don't really teach about slavery in American school. They kind of they spend like an hour on it and they gloss over it, despite how long it lasted and how much of an impact it still continues to have for African Americans. Let's not mention it. Better not mention it. If we don't mention it, never happened. And is this kind of... Oh, Stacey has to go because her lunch hour is up. Stacey, thank you for joining us. Nice to have spent the morning with you. Love to your mum. Enjoy your bath. Have a great rest of the day. See you on Monday. This kind of inconvenient truths of our history. And is that kind of exclusively American, just to kind of ignore them and think, well, no, if we don't mention them, then they didn't happen. That's how I feel about Trump and coronavirus. Like, his theory was, if I don't think about it or talk about it, it'll go away. That's like narcissism personified, isn't it? If I just think about myself and not others, then I'm not forced to kind of engage with this other thing that I'm not interested in. Just stop talking about it and it won't be a thing anymore. It's only a thing if you're talking about it. Let's just stop talking about a pandemic that is affecting every single country of the world, where 5 billion people have died, and let's just pretend it never happened. And then it'll go away. Same thinking with slavery. If we talk about it, then it's going to be a thing. Their argument is, well, let's just not talk about it, and then it won't have happened. It won't be a problem anymore because we're not talking about it. Black people want to be seen for being black. They don't want to be kind of ignored and just hope that the racism will disappear if it's not taken on as a subject, both as in school and in conversations, in bars and restaurants and homes. They want to talk about it. They want, it's like when people say, oh, well, I'm not a racist. I don't see color. That's racist. See their color. See it. Acknowledge it. Recognize that the difference is that they have struggled and continue to, because society has been so imperfect for so long. White people bought and sold black people. It happened. Made them work for free, plowing their land, picking their cotton. I mean, it's like, see it, acknowledge it, learn about it, digest it, feel it. But it seems the conservative viewpoint in all of these states is like, if we talk about it, then it becomes a thing, and it's going to be much better if we don't mention it. In Virginia, Republican Glenn Youngkin won the governor's race this month, promising to ban critical race theory, a term that has become a stand-in for concepts like systemic racism and implicit bias. His Democratic opponent faced criticism for saying parents shouldn't tell schools what to teach. Well, some sections of the new laws would seem unobjectionable. Tennessee's law bars the teaching that one race or sex is inherently superior to another race or sex, but other sections are more murky, barring teachers that promote division or cause children to feel psychological distress because of their race or sex. And those vague prohibitions have left teachers worried that any instruction on difficult topics like slavery or contemporary racism could be construed by parents as violating a law, according to the General Counsel for the National Education Association. So they're like, if in doubt, leave it out. I mean, we all have our opinion. I actually personally believe that black people are now a superior race. I personally believe that. It's just my opinion. And it's because they have to do more work. They have to work harder, and so they're smarter. They have to outsmart the white man in order to get work, in order to deal with daily racism, systemic racism that's everywhere. It's everywhere. So they are forced to evolve at a faster rate to be superior. Not in a kind of white supremacists kind of way, in a violent way, but they have to check every situation for their own safety. I mean, I was talking to a friend about this, and she said that when she goes into a room, the first thing she does as a black woman is count the black people. Do you do that as a white person when you go into a room? Do you count the white people? No. Because you are safe. You are already safe. Because you're white. But if you're black and are historically unsafe, you go into a room, first thing you do, scan the room, count the black people. White people need to know this stuff. You can't have equality because there's too much history. The history needs to be analyzed and understood and communicated and shared in schools and in conversations at home and here and everywhere. We should be talking about this every day. And only then, after a period of decades, will you get to a point of parity. But only if you talk about it. And if you hide it, like these schools, and these school boards, and these Republican states where, they would rather that racism was never mentioned. If you take that attitude, then there will never be equality or parity or community, true integration. Just won't happen. Bob, thank you for joining us. Welcome to Backchannel. Some have cited the new laws in pushing to eliminate instructional material. In Tennessee, a conservative group of mothers in the Nashville suburb of Williamson County, Mums for Liberty, has challenged how schools teach the civil rights movement to second graders. In a letter to the Department of Education, Robin Steinman complained that the texts and accompanying teacher's manual imply that people of color continue to be oppressed by an oppressive, angry, vicious, scary, mean, loud, and hateful white population. Ran out of breath just then. The books Steinman cited include Ruby Bridges Goes to School and Martin Luther King Jr. and The March on Washington. In Oklahoma, teachers at the Enman Public Schools said books by authors of color were struck from a list of anchored texts around which English teachers build their curriculum. A lawsuit filed by teachers, students, and parents said the district also removed commonly taught texts by black authors from the curriculum, including the autobiography of Frederick Douglass. I'm getting a lot of slaps on my head this morning. Bob, thank you for joining us. I'm so pleased that you're here. It's 10:39. You've got me for another 15 minutes, and then your pal Hal will not be talking about segregations in classrooms. Because that's what it's going to come to, isn't it? We're going to end up having an entry for the white people to go into school and then another door round the corner for the black people to go into school. Ronald, thank you for joining us. This is Backchannel. I'm Anthony Davis. Ronald's in California. I'm in California, Ronald. A spokesperson for the school system, Susan Park Schlepp, said that some reading assignments were made optional as part of an annual review to ensure they align with state guidelines. Well, in Texas, one Republican lawmaker directed a committee he chairs to seek information on the use of at least 850 books on topics ranging from racism to abortion. Do you remember, the whole civil rights movement? What preceded that was the burning of books. Do you remember the burning of books? And the feminist movement and the burning of books? Do you remember this in our social history? This is effectively the same thing, isn't it? It's a metaphor. To burn a book is a metaphor for removing a book from the conversation. And this is what's happening. If in Texas, they've removed 850 books on topics ranging from racism to abortion. And so that is effectively the burning of books. We're back to the days of Jim Crow and the Ku Klux Klan. State Representative Matt Cross, who is running for State Attorney General, said 5 Texas school districts had removed books after receiving objections from students, parents, and taxpayers. 2 of the districts confirmed they'd received copies of the letter and were looking into the matter. Clay Robinson, a spokesperson for the Texas State Teachers Association, said the letter only adds to the confusion teachers have dealt with since the state passed a bill requiring educators to teach both sides of topics. So which bit about slavery is both sides? Which bit about the Holocaust is both sides? Which bit about systemic racism is both sides? I really don't know what the other side is. I only really know what the truth is. It's a bit like when Kellyanne Conway talked about alternative facts. And we were all like, Nobody really used a phrase like that before. That was like the clearest example of how opinion was during that administration considered to be the guiding light. Not facts, not important. The racial divide in support of these measures was obvious at an Alabama school board meeting in August, where the 2 black members voted against a resolution denouncing instruction intended to indoctrinate students in ideologies promoting a particular race or sex, while the 7 white members voted in favor. Are you ever embarrassed to be white? I mean, I'm embarrassed to be male sometimes, but I'm increasingly embarrassed to be white and male when I read this type of stuff. James Copland, Director of Legal Policy at the conservative Manhattan Institute, said that chilling effects are real, but that appropriately tailored new laws are needed to show schools what is and isn't appropriate. How about the truth? How about factual history? How about not picking and choosing what we educate in terms of our history, but teaching the truth? Because it's not in question. It's not like, I know that there's 7 Holocaust deniers, and it's unfortunate that some of them were in the executive branch. But I mean, and I'm sure there's plenty of them in Congress now. If you look at some of these people, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and, even Kevin McCarthy, some of these extremists, they probably hold those views. She's tweeted loads about Holocaust denial. But what's the opposing view? Is it that it just never happened? I find this fascinating. We've talked a lot in the last 10 days that we've been together about social norms, like what is normal, and when abnormal becomes normal. So whereby you question yourself. You're like, am I living in the metaverse or in real life? Am I in Ready Player One or am I in reality? Because I listened to some of this argument and I'm just like, what planet are you on? It's a very interesting conversation to think about our psyche, where we sit. If you've ever done drugs, marijuana legalized here in California about 4 years ago, or maybe 5 years ago. You know, you have a little smoke and you get like a little bit like you're not sure like which way is up and which way is down, and where it's like the time shifts. You're like, did I just say that, or have I not said it yet? It's kind of fun to be in this place. But I worry that that place is becoming reality for people, where you can say stuff like, the Holocaust didn't happen, or let's not talk about racism, and then it'll go away. That's not, it's just not normal. And yet the more people that say it, especially people in power, there's a bit like what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said 2 days ago when she was criticizing Paul Gosar about this video that he'd posted, this violent video of her being decapitated with a sword. She said that when lawmakers post these videos, it's game over. What happens to the standing of the office of Congress to be a congressman or woman? What happens to you? The value of being in authority and representing the people and being somebody for people to look up to. If congressmen are posting these videos, that violence trickles down into society. That's why there was an insurrection on the 6th of January. It wasn't a surprise to me. I totally knew it was going to happen. People are like, oh, well, I didn't see that coming. I saw it coming for 4 years. It's all they talked about. We must be strong. Take back the power. The rhetoric never changed. Yeah, Trump made a final speech on the morning that said, I'm going to go with you to the Capitol. Of course, he didn't, scarpered, as quick as he could, out the back door. But of course, we all saw it coming. Anybody with half a brain knew that that was going to happen. We need to go back to living in reality where we can trust our instinct and we know fundamentally if something is good or bad, right or wrong. Not teaching about slavery in school is wrong. We feel it because it's normal, it's natural, it's a reaction. People held in captivity. Humans by humans. So this director of legal policy at the conservative Manhattan Institute pointed to some episodes, including a Cupertino teacher who directed elementary school students to deconstruct their racial identities, and a Philadelphia elementary school that had students appear on an auditorium stage with signs that read "Jail Trump" and "Black Power Matters." We don't want to chill genuine discussion and clear-minded study of history, Copland said, but he said students should not be forced to subscribe to a set of beliefs around racism and sexism. Hi, Kobe. Hi, Frosty. Hi, Ronald. But maybe those are their beliefs. You know, maybe those are their beliefs. Derek W. Black, a professor of law at the University of South Carolina and the author of Schoolhouse Burning, Public Education and the Assault on American Democracy, said these measures are unnecessary. Federal civil rights law already makes it illegal to discriminate in the classroom, he said. He does not doubt that some teachers do a poor job of teaching about racism and sexism, or that some parents have legitimate grievances, but said they should get in line with 1,001 other legitimate grievances. Why is this number one, he said? Politics. That's right. Politics. We have allowed politics to be the predominant decider in everything now. We're so divided. It's 10:48. This is Backchannel. I'm Anthony Davis. This is The Anthony Davis Show. Thank you very much for joining. Oh, I did this and it's not there. Oh, it's over here now. You are listening and watching to The Anthony Davis Show on Backchannel. See? Thank you, Carla. Carla is the puppet master / producer. I'm the puppet. And I'm really pleased that we're able to have this conversation because I just feel like these conversations are not had enough. And you can have them in a very gentle, informative, non-argumentative way. Nobody has argued with me this morning. And it's not that that's the way I like it, but it's just interesting, isn't it? It's like we can only have... There's only one right way, morally. So why are the states trying to ban this concept of critical race theory, which is not even a thing? Critical race theory is a phrase that was invented by the right to kind of brand, because the right is so good at branding things. Lock her up, build the wall, make America white again. All of these phrases. They're so good at it. And so here's another one, creating this fake thing called critical race theory. It's like, it's not taught in schools. It's not like, right, let's do a critical race theory class. But to understand black and white and how African Americans have suffered at the hands of white people over centuries is essential. Because history doesn't go away. It stays with us. It makes us who we are. I asked my daughter yesterday, she is 6, after I picked her up from school, and I said, do you ever learn about recycling or about the planet, about environmental issues, about carbon emissions, and whether or not, the fact that the planet is heating up and that we need to reduce the heating, the global heating? Do you ever talk? She said, no, never talk about that in school. And so I often don't know with her, I'm going to have to ask the teacher, because I'm very interested, because I would have thought that if you're living through a climate crisis, that would be the number one thing you would need to teach these kids, because they are the generation that are hopefully going to save us from catastrophe. And yet, I have a feeling that because climate change has been politicized by the right, that schools would be frightened to teach it because some parents might be like, I don't want my kids learning about all that. And this is something that affects all of us. It's not like it's just some kind of opinion piece. I mean, there is more science now on climate change than on any other subject. And in fact, at the COP26 in Glasgow last week, the big kind of construct that came out of the conference was the fact that global warming has been blamed on carbon emissions. They agreed, they all signed up to the fact that that is fact. All countries. So why should these subjects that are so imperative, why are they dividing us? Why is critical race theory dividing America? Why is climate change dividing America? Why is pandemic dividing America? Why is getting vaccinated dividing America? Why is a woman's right to choose dividing America? What would you rather have, an old white man tell you that you can't get an abortion? A man who doesn't have a uterus or a womb? You'd rather that he told you, because when you look at these bill signings in Texas, where they trying to ban abortion, notice all the people in the room are old white men congratulating each other. Hear, hear. They branded it pro-life to make it sound better. Pro-choice shouldn't even need to be a thing. It's 2021, a woman should choose. It's nearly 2022. We're just weeks away from it now. And yet all of these conversations about division and the burning of books and not wanting to acknowledge racism and slavery, and all of these conversations I thought we would never have again. I thought that these conversations, I actually thought the human trajectory of intellectualism would be going in this direction the whole time. So this is us just getting further and further away from all of the bad stuff, and here's all the good stuff, and we're just gonna get more integrated, and we're gonna get more loving of each other, and we're gonna be more respectful of each other, and we're gonna give women choice, and we're gonna give the black community the respect that they deserve, and we're all going to live in harmony. Like, that's what I thought was going to happen. And it turns out that this is actually this way around. That's the modern world that we're living in here. In America. Not anywhere else. A few countries, a little bit of craziness. But it's like, this is what we're dealing with. I really enjoy these conversations. I hope you do too. It's nice to kind of chat, and you can join in at any time. Thank you for joining the Anthony Davis Show. I'll be back on Monday morning at 9 a.m. Stay with Backchannel for your pal Hal next.